Planetside 2 Fighter Pilot. So I covered in my last couple of videos, playlist which this is in, finding fights in Planetside 2, playing the objective, and also the best weapons, but I figured in this video I'd run through not only how to fly, but also my opinions on all of the Empire-specific fighters in the game, as well as what I think is the best setup for them. Now, of course, there's three empires. The Terran Republic has got the Mosquito, the New Conglomerate has got the Reaver, and the Vanu Sovereignty has, of course, got the Scythe. Now, I paused there just so you could hear the difference in sound between the three aircraft, because sound, much like footsteps does when you're playing as infantry, makes a huge difference when you're flying. So if you're attacking a ground target and you hear the noise of an aircraft, which obviously isn't that of the Empire you're part of, then almost immediately turn towards that, because you can hear aircraft outside of the distance they can start firing at you, and it will save your life a lot of times. And that's how you deal with that sort of low field of view and general poor awareness that you can have sometimes when you're flying in Planetside 2. Now, if you've been wondering what you've actually been seeing in the gameplay here, I am of course using the Dalton on the Liberator, which is essentially the bomber aircraft in Planetside. The Dalton differs from the Zephyr, which is the other explosive round firing gun, in that it's better against tanks and armoured targets, but slightly worse against infantry. So I prefer the Dalton because if your aim's pretty good, you can generally do just as well with infantry, but that is the main difference between the two if you choose to purchase them. But this video is strictly about the fighter pilots. So starting off with what you should set up your fighter with, and this is the same for pretty much every of the empires. Starting with primary weapons though, I find the best setup is the anti-air cannon, the Hailstorm there for the Vanu Sovereignty, and either photon pods or rocket pods depending on which empire you're part of, because if you don't take rocket pods you can't really help out ground troops on objectives, which should be your main role. Utility slot, scout radar and ejection system are useless. Decoy flares is probably the best there, although some people do take fire suppression, but you don't really need it. In terms of defense, I would say that either composite armor or nanite auto repair are probably the best there. They're all fairly useful, but if you're beginning out, I'd start with composite armor. Finally, in the performance slot, you've got three airframes for dogfighting, the hover stability and the racer airframe. Now, which of these you take depends on not only how you fly, but also which ESF you're flying in. So the Scythe has got the best air brakes, the best speed conservation, no bullet drop, and the best cockpit. However, it's the easiest to hit, I would say, because it's so wide, and the difficulty you have with precision aiming is with yawing, which is aiming to the left or to the right, because that's controlled by the A and D keys. So because it's so wide, other aircraft, the Reaver and the Mosquito, have got more room for error when shooting at it. It's also got no visual cue to show when the thrusters are in hover mode or they're in afterburner mode, which actually makes quite a big difference, and I wouldn't recommend the Scythe for learning to fly because of that. The Reaver, for the New Conglomerate, has got the best hoverjet, the best afterburner acceleration, and it's also got the best time to kill on the primary gun. Its biggest negative is that it's got the weakest air brakes. However, it actually doesn't, because it loses speed more when you turn. If you know how to turn correctly, you can actually make it slow down even faster than the Scythe, which has got the best air brakes. What this means is the Reaver is the best in hover mode, and it can get into it really quickly. So if you're doing complex maneuvers and in dogfights like the reverse maneuver or you're barrel rolling to get out the way of enemy fire, it's generally easiest to do it in the Reaver. The Mosquito, on the other hand, is generally the fast fighter. It's got the best acceleration without afterburners on, and it's got the best top speed, so it can essentially outrun, especially if you've got the racer frame on, all of the other ESFs. The downsides of the Mosquito, though, are that it's got the worst default cannon, and it's got the worst hoverjets, which can make especially circle, strafe and ground targets fairly difficult, and it also means manoeuvring in dogfights can sometimes be problematic as well, although you can get away because of course it's so fast. Now, weirdly to me, the Mosquito also kind of feels the most fragile of all three fighters, but they actually all have exactly the same health. So they were the differences between the three fighters. I'm just going to show you now my keybinds. They're as default, apart from I've added a button, the E and the C buttons, to pitch up and pitch down, so I can continually loop. I've also changed my S button, which was slow down, to analog thrust. Now what analog thrust does is essentially switch off your engine. It makes your speed go down to the very lowest it can, and having it on that will really help you when you're doing more complex maneuvers I'll show you now. Now the first thing you need to learn is to fly in a circle using your hover jets. I've got my button on the S key here to keep me as low as my speed can possibly go, so you can continually hit a target with your primary and secondary guns. It can be a bit difficult, you've got to yaw as well to keep it on target, but it's definitely worth practicing. The second maneuver, reverse turning, I've got my jets here obviously in the hover position, using the Mosquito to show you that. And as you can see, it lets me turn around and also fly backwards a little way. So if you fly over a target you're attacking on the ground or in a dogfight, you can actually get a bit further away so you can get more rocket pods in on it. It's also worth noting you turn a lot quicker when you're pitching down rather than when you're pitching up, so try and do that in dogfights. How does this all relate though to which airframe you should take? Well, basically I prefer the hover airframe because it lets me circle quicker ground targets, and it also lets me maneuver more quickly in dogfights and also gain altitude over enemies a lot quicker. A lot of people think the dogfighting airframe's better, but to be honest, if you know how to reverse maneuver and roll, then you really don't need to turn that often or that quickly, because a lot of people don't actually know how to do that. I see a lot of people in the Mosquito using the race airframe because the Mosquito already has pretty weak hover jets to start off with, so that might be worth taking, because basically if you've got that and you've got the afterburner fuel, then nothing can catch you. Finally, got a couple of extra quick tips for you. If somebody does manage to sneak up on you and you don't hear them and don't manage to turn towards them, your best bet is to head towards friendlies. Your second best bet is to head behind cover and cover your turn behind that cover. And your third best bet is to just turn in mid-air, as you probably have to do on Esme because there isn't really that much cover on that continent. I've actually found a guy on YouTube called Spade Far, who is probably the best pilot I've ever seen in Planetside 2, and he's done a maneuver where he literally doesn't have to shoot back at the enemy because they simply can't hit him when he's turning, and in fact he can just play with other aircraft. He's that good at flying. So links in the description to his channel if you want to get really good, far better than I will ever be. He is the guy to watch. Forgot to mention this, if you're wondering what are the best attachments, I tend to take nothing on the primary gun and thermal vision on the secondary gun. Thermal vision is far better than night vision. Night vision used to be sort of a cheap alternative to it, but night vision doesn't highlight enemies anymore since they patched it. So you've got to save up the 200 certs for thermal vision, and they've buffed the range on that, so it is the best now to take on photon pods. Thanks for watching, guys. If this video was useful for you, please do tell me in the comments. Got a couple of other Planetside 2 videos lined up, some sniper tips, where I think is the best Empire as well. And of course, Planetside 2 is completely free, so you can just download it right now from the link in the description and play it if you want to. On that note, guys, I'll see you in the next chapter.